Alrighty, Lumberjacks, welcome back. And today we are going to be talking about grapples. Just grapples. Nothing else but grapples. I could go on a 7-year segment talking about grapples in this game. So today we're going to talk about them. I just basically wanted to review grapples, talk about the physics, talk about how they work, why they work the way that they do, things that I've done, things that are coming up in the next update. 1.4 update is what I'm talking about that's coming up. So I've had lots of feedback about the grapples since the last update. I've had lots of feedback saying people love the fact that they grab better, but unfortunately a lot of times they're way too overpowered. They're also way too overpowered if you're using logs that are non-FDR. Now, I don't specifically tailor my machines to other maps or other in-game stuff. But in this case, I do want people using these, so I don't really have a problem with trying to make them work a little bit better. So obviously, my logs on my maps are much heavier. The physics are different. The frictions are different. All that stuff is different. So when you play an in-game Giants map, or even a third-party map from another modder, their tree physics are probably going to be different than mine. So they'll probably be either stock Giants ones, or set to something else that they have set up themselves. So these trees in my game, they have a higher weight to them, and they have a tiny bit of a lower friction to match up with the grapples a little bit better. They have a different rolling friction as well. So basically the way these trees interact with the ground is different. The ground has a higher friction. They bounce differently. They fall differently. I tried to make it so that they were the most stable possible so that you can pile them, that you can bunch them correctly, and you can load them onto trucks properly. So today what I wanted to go over was just talking about how the grapple is set up, why it's set up the way it is, and like I said, the changes I've made in 1.4 to make it better. Okay, so the new grapple compared to the last update. So the last update was 1.3. This is going to be 1.4 when it does come out. Again, we're just going over grapples today. Nothing else to do with the 1.4 update. Just grapples, entire conversation about those. So there's a few things I wanted to cover in relation to real life. So in real life, it is very similar to this game on the way that you are grabbing logs, picking up logs, and piling them. And also, in this game, it is not realistic in terms of sometimes the way the logs react to each other. So one thing I've noticed people sending me videos or pictures talking about how logs falling out of the bottom of the grapple. So I can tell you this happens in real life lots if you don't grab your logs properly, or if the logs shift, or if it's winter, sometimes they slip. So anybody who's having issues with logs falling out of the bottom, it's completely a user error. It is not really the game's error, because honestly these grapples pick up these logs very effectively. So if you pick up a bundle of logs like this, it's holding them in that grapple really, really well. Now, the one thing that needs to be sort of taught to people is that when you do not size sort your logs, and when I say size sort, I mean if you do not separate your big pieces, so this is a big piece, this is a big piece, this is a big piece, and they're all sort of the same size. If you don't do any size sorting with your processor or with your machine, then when you go to grab to pick up these logs, it's going to grab differently. So if I grab a bunch of big ones, so if I grab, let's say we're going to grab this bundle right here. So if I grab a bunch of these really big logs, they take up space in the grapple differently than the little ones do, right? So as you can see, the little ones are kind of falling through. They're not settling very nice. But if you take the little ones out of the equation, as if we size sorted and we only had these big round ones here, they actually sit in the grapple very nicely because they're all uniform sizes. I mean, that's just basic comprehending shapes, right? But some people don't know this, so that's why we're reviewing it today. So if you size sort your logs, as you can see, all 4 of those are exactly the same size. They will sit in the grapple very, very nicely. It looks really good. They're uniform. They stay in the grapple. I can shake it around. It works really well. But if I put those on top of small logs, like so, and I go to pick them up, what'll happen sometimes is there's a little bit of a space in between the grapple on the bottom, and as you can see, the logs are kind of working way back and forth. Luckily, there's a medium-sized one in there. It's stopping them. But if I open this grapple just even a teeny little bit more, you'll start to see they kind of fall out the bottom. So if you are not size sorting your logs and you're grabbing from these kind of mixed piles of wood, just like real life, like I said, I've unloaded lots of pulp trucks with mixed sizes and mixed bags of wood. If you do not get a good grip on it, the logs will fall out the bottom. That is just physics. And this game is not wrong in terms of how that works. So again, we have that small one on the bottom there. If I shake it back and forth long enough, I bet that little one will just kind of work its way right out. Yeah. So either you can, as the operator, choose to open your grapple and let the stuff fall out the bottom and then close it again, or you can just let it fall and pick it up afterwards. That's pretty much how it goes. So anybody who has those complaints that's been emailing me about it, that's what's going on, is size sorting. Now, the other thing is overgrabs. So if you're doing an overgrab, I call it, or overfilling your bucket, so to speak. So let's grab a whole bunch of stuff here and put them in a pile. If you are overgrabbing, as in the circumference of this grapple when it's closed, so let's say that is about closed there. If you are overloading that space too much and these tongs on the bottom, or these claws, aren't touching back to back like this so that they're within it, stuff can fall out if the grip isn't good on the logs, especially if they're not size sorted. So if I try to grab this huge pile of stuff that we just made here, and we'll lift that up, what's happening is a lot of these big ones at the top, see the little ones are kind of falling out the bottom? These big ones at the top are taking up obviously more space than the ones at the bottom. Now, honestly, that's a pretty good grip because we have that medium one stuck in there. But honestly, it's pretty easy for that to fall out if you bang it up against something, or if you're swinging too fast, maybe possibly some of that might fall out. These new grapples are a lot better than they were in the last update in terms of the way they communicate with the logs, I guess you could say. But I just wanted to go over these kind of fundamentals of stuff. If you're not size sorting your logs, you got to be a little more careful with your grabs. And if you got these mixed piles like this and you're worried about stuff falling out the bottom, take smaller bites. So take a smaller group. Take this little group so you're still within the grapple. As you can see, the bottom, there's a tiny gap, but that gap is not big enough to let any of the logs out. But take a smaller grab. Don't take a huge grab from the pile if you're having troubles doing it. And if they don't grab properly, which also happens in real life, so if you grab a pile and it's not sitting right, just put it back down and re-grab it again. So like that one's sitting kind of cockeyed. I don't really like it. So you can drop it, resort it, pick it back up. See, that looks a lot better. See how they nicely slide up in there? Perfect. So that's kind of how you'd kind of do that, I guess. So in the last update, this is a change that's going to happen in 1.4 when it comes out in December here. The complaint from most people were that the claw was good because it held stuff, but it was overpowered. So it was incredibly overpowered, and what would happen is when you went to grab logs off the ground or out of a deck, they would kind of shoot up into the grapple like way too violently and not realistically. And I agreed, it was a little bit overpowered for sure. So what I've done in this update is I've tried to imitate the effect of the hydraulic pressures of cylinders when they close. So basically, like the grapple claw, when you close it, it feels kind of weird compared to real life, because in real life it's a little more responsive, and it doesn't really have that kind of floaty feel. Well, I mean, it does and it doesn't, but if you're a real life operator, you know what I'm talking about, how it's a little more responsive. And in this game, it feels like there's a little bit of a delay on the grapple. And the reason for this is because I had to create that to make the physics play nicely with the logs. And you know what? I can actually show you what it's like if I have zero dampening. So we're actually going to open one of these, and I'm going to change it here. We're going to do all this live so you guys can see why I do the things I do with these god-awful physics sometimes. Okay, so here's my physics. Basically what we're changing in here is our dampening, right? So right now we have 500 dampening. So if I take the dampening completely off, so there's no dampening anymore, what'll happen is, so right now, like I said, it's kind of a floaty feel on the grapple. Like when you go to close, it's not very responsive. So if I reload this, now it's, oops, changed the wrong one here. We need, let's fix that. I forgot we're working on a different clam here. There we go. Sorry, we're working on this one. Too many files open here. Okay, so if I take the dampening off entirely, now it's incredibly responsive. But as you can see, it is just way too responsive. Like, you see how it's like jittering? In real life, some of the grapples I've used in real life actually kind of react like that a little bit. Now, the problem with this game is we've taken the dampening away, so now it has a spring effect, like a very intense spring effect. And what'll happen is if you're going from a pile or you catch on something, it'll spring really hard. See how it's sprung really, really hard on the ground? And that, what happens is when that springs in that really nasty, violent spring like that, see how it goes whoosh, like a rat trap? It's going to shoot your logs across the map, right? So, I mean, it'll pick these logs up. Let's go from this pile. But it'll spring them. You see how the logs jump up into the grapple really violently? And it's not good. It's really not good. And it doesn't look good, it doesn't feel good, and it doesn't feel correct when you're actually picking up logs. They shouldn't spring violently like that, because the real grapples don't. They're under hydraulic pressure. They might jitter forward a bit if they lose grip or gain grip, but nothing to that violent extent. So, if we put dampening on there, it does take away a bit of the response on the grapple. As you can see, it's really slow, smooth closing. But honestly, that speed is not inaccurate to real life. That's pretty darn close. It might be a little faster in real life, and a little bit more responsive, but honestly, you get used to it in this game and it doesn't really bother you. But now, when you go to pick up logs, it'll roll them up into the grapple a lot nicer. And you kind of got to play with it a little bit to make them roll up into it, sort of like real life. Because in real life, there's hydraulic pressures at work that crush and lift the cylinders, right? In this game, it's just 2 points moving from one point to another, and we're telling it how fast it should move from that point to that point, and whether there should be resistance and whether there should be dampening of that resistance. So we've added all of that stuff to this to make, in my opinion, the smoothest possible grapple that we can to play nicely with the physics. So now when you go to grab stuff on the ground, you don't have that big shooting jitter anymore, right? It's smooth. You see how it closes really smoothly? Oops, grabbing a stump there. So it'll slide forward a little bit, but it doesn't do a huge whoosh, like a rat trap effect, I call it, right? So now it goes a lot smoother. Again, some people don't like this feeling because it feels really floaty for the grapple. It doesn't feel like very crazy responsive. But unfortunately, if you want the physics to play really nice in this game, that's the kind of stuff you need. And like I said, it rolls the logs up really nice into the grapple so that you can load them onto the trucks and put them on there really nice. Whoops, without smashing stuff up on there. And it also gives you the ability to move the logs around on the truck without a whole bunch of springiness, because if there's lots of springiness and no dampening, like I showed you with the rat trap effect, if I go to like move a log with a claw really lightly like this, and it catches, it can actually spring that log and shoot it right out of the bunk, which is ugly as heck, and nobody likes that. So like I said, now it rolls up a lot nicer, sits in the grapple a lot nicer, and you're not really having as much of a challenge with the spring effects or anything. So coming from the last update 1.13, it'll feel like the claws are, I don't know how to put this, they're honestly the same amount of strength that they had, but they'll feel like they fight with the logs a little bit more when you're picking them up. In the last update, you could go into a deck and just grab from anywhere, and it would just crunch all the logs together as if you had like 20 gazillion psi of hydraulic pressure, which is not realistic, because in real life videos, actually, let's bring up a video here. Actually, I'm going to do this. I think I can do this. If not, I will get flagged on YouTube and we'll get in trouble. So there is a lady that I follow who is a loaderman, or loader woman, I guess you'd say. Her name is Jean. and she loads log trucks. Let's see here. One sec here. I'm just going to find this video. Okay, sorry, I just had to find this video here. So this is, her name is Jean Hill 70, and I follow her because she has some really, really good loader videos. So this is her video, not my video. Like and follow her if you want to see some really cool loading videos. She's got some great stuff. But on TikTok, this one always popped up for me, and it's a really, really great example of seeing how the loader physics work kind of in real time. So as we're watch this claw as it goes into these piles. As you can see, it fights with the logs a little bit, right? You get that kind of fight with the roll. And then when she's loading it, you'll see, because of the weight of the logs, because of the physics on the logs, it doesn't always load up in the perfect grabs. So she kind of got to fight with it a bit. But it's a lot more realistic to that aspect. So when she's into the deck, see how she kind of has to roll the grapple a bit and fight with the logs a little bit to make sure that she can get a good grab into that bundle. And then she's just kind of fixing it up. And then onto the deck. But what I'm trying to demonstrate is the actual grapples shouldn't be too overpowering when you're pulling from a log deck. They need to have... See how she slides it forward to kind of let them roll into the grapple? And then does a little check to make sure they're all in there, and then goes for the drop. So it's super duper important that the logs are not, or the grapples are not overpowering the logs. And that's the effect I've been trying to get with this game. So trying to find the perfect balance between the dampening on the grapples and the weights on the logs and all of that stuff to give you as close of an experience as possible is the goal, right? As you can see, those roll up really nice in there. These are all really nicely, fairly size sorted. They're all fairly, the same, similar size. There's no giant pieces mixed in with the little pieces because the processor operator clearly sorted these pretty nice. So again, after watching that video, the effect is the same, where you're trying to make it so that they're not overpowering. Because what I can do, I mean, you can add 20,000 if you really wanted to, or God knows 20 million. And what happens is this claw becomes impossibly powerful. So if I go to grab, it'll actually squeeze the logs to the point where they're shaking and the physics are starting to break through other physics. But that's not how they're supposed to be. They are supposed to be fighting with the deck a little bit. So you kind of want the same effect where you gotta kind of fight into the deck a little bit and roll them up and get sort of that similar feeling. Again, these are not size sorted, so they're not sitting very nicely in my grapple. But considering they're not size sorted, they're grabbing really, really well. So again, same kind of effect. But that's the change that'll be going from 1.3 to 1.4. Is just that kind of you're fighting with the logs a little bit more. Again, compared to real life, it's probably still overpowered in my opinion. But if I make it too much, less, you're not going to have a very good experience in the game itself. So again, you kind of got to fight with it a little bit. Again, same with what she does in those videos. If you shake your claw back and forth a little bit, you can kind of get your hydraulics to play nicer. The other thing you can do, like I've done in real life, is if you push one side down a little bit and then push the other side down a little bit, sometimes that'll help tuck them up into the grapple a little bit better. And it allows kind of relief from the hydraulics so that you can let them pull it right into it. So yeah, like I said, I just basically wanted to do this video to show you guys why the grapples are the way they are. And I know I always talk about these in the update videos, but I wanted to do a full segment just on the grapples themselves. As you can see, they're not overpowered now. They're picking up these logs quite nicely. Again, you got to kind of fight with the deck a little bit sometimes. These aren't size sorted. I didn't do a very nice job processing this stuff. I just kind of threw it all in a pile and figured I'd load it when I got the chance. But again, if you have a pile that is not size sorted, just take smaller bites so that it rolls up nice. And like I said, even with mixed sizes, if you can get a good grab where they roll together nice like that, you'll find it still drops out really nice and picks up well. So anybody having issues with picking stuff up, the 1.4 update is going to have a lot of nice changes to the way that the physics work and the grapples work in comparison to the last one. So hopefully you guys will like that, and hopefully the response on the grapples themselves will be a lot better for you guys to work with. All right, okay, well, that's basically all I had to say about grapples. If you guys have any questions about grapples, I'm sure you guys don't, but I'm obsessed with grapples and trying to make them work, as you guys have probably figured out over the years. I'm constantly trying to make them better. I think, and I say this every time, but I think this is the best that they can get. I don't know what else to do to them to try to improve them. I've used every possible physic in this game and every setting to try to improve them to make them more realistic, and all I can do is try to find a happy medium. They're never going to be perfect to real life because this game is far from perfect compared to real life. So hopefully this will give you guys a good log loading experience. But if you guys have any questions or comments, leave them in the video below. All right, guys, you have a good one. We'll catch you on the next one. See ya.